Welcome back.
We're back.
New season. Ready to go. Like spring break is over for the homies, and we're back to chat about about film, about filmmaking, and all the fun things that go in between.
hmm
Ryan, I think you got a sponsor.
We, as always, jumping in from oh shit, I should have grabbed one of the other ones. Uh, Jumping in from sponsorship is going to be Tasty as Fuck Hot Sauce. That's right, Tasty as Fuck Hot Sauce. This one right here is the Thai chili serrano sauce with a roasted onion, roasted garlic, and it's one of our more mild sauces. I say "our" because I'm also a hot sauce maker. I started this as a way to kind of help fund movies, and in a way, it's doing that. Now, the bottles I meant to grab is I have a brand new flavor of hot sauce that I'm only selling through my Indiegogo campaign, and we'll talk about the feature film here in a minute. But it's a brand new flavor, and I call it Left for Dead sauce, but I don't have it in my hand. But you can find us on Etsy.com. That's right. Go to Etsy, look up Tasty as Fuck.
and it is
Help us make
indeed.
a movie.
Yeah,
So
awesome. Well,
also,
I,
sorry.
yep.
Also, the Butt Book. I want to do a shout out for my friend Carl Diamond, who's in California, and he was one of the first ones to put me on. I did an episode with him on a YouTube show about how we made our movie, Married and Loving It. But it's called the Butt Book. It's a book for your ideas. Don't put your ideas in your phone. Put them in your butt book. And on the inside of it, you have different ways that you can do scribble your notes, drawings, things like that. And it fits in the back pocket. It's available on Amazon, actually. So you can order it through Amazon. The Butt Book by Carl Diamond.
Bro. Well, so speaking of filmmaking, I think you've got the between the two of us, you've got the most process, like the most progress recently.
What's going
All of
on?
my stuff has been submitting to screenwriting competitions, seeing how that goes. But
Yeah.
tell us about Left for Dead.
Left for Dead, yeah. Do we have a third sponsor, Jason?
Not today, we don't. Next time we will.
Okay. Um, yeah, Left for Dead. So I back in like February, January. It was right after the Utah Film Festival. I came with this idea. Told BJ, I said, "Hey, I think I'm gonna." BJ Wimpy's the actor who's in the short film that we did, Convicts and Chocolate. I said, "I have this idea for a movie. I don't know if I want to do any dialogue." And it's about a drifter, and he's moving along, and then he starts getting hunted, and it's in this post-apocalyptic western. And I'm not going to explain how that how the apocalypse happens. I'm just going to leave that out. And um, and at the same time, no dialogue because I don't see any reason to say things like where, how, oh shit, like no, like I don't. That's just so it's like might as well just pull all that out. Less is more. Wrote the script. We did a few reads. I'm still actually working on it. There's always moments where like a new idea comes up. It's like, oh, he should do this in this moment. So it's still kind of organic and still going. But we did launch our Indiegogo campaign for funding. We are looking at dates for July and August to shoot. This movie is moving forward. So we are on Indiegogo. You can look up Left for Dead. We are at almost $5,000 raised, which is 5,000 more than I've ever raised for any other movie that we've put together. So I see it as a massive success on our end. When we made Married and Loving It, I think I made it for like $6,000 all in. That was from the beginning to the end, even through the festivals and such. So maybe a little bit more along the way, but so I'm yeah, we're starting to get people who we're casting other Utah actors. People are jumping on board. We have people who we've worked with in the past who've jumped in as funding producers. So like that's one of the perks that you can get on the campaign, on the Indiegogo campaign. So like Kim Capard, who worked with us on your film Ancient Evil 29. She was also in my Ancient Evil werewolf movie, Moon's Blood. Tom Rockwell, who we've I worked with years ago in the past on Spirit Squad, um, he's jumped in as a funding producer. My friends from the UK, also a couple married or, filmmaking couple is what I mean to say. They're Caroline and James Spence. They are in as funding producers, and so yeah, so we're like I said, we also have a perk for hot sauce as well. You can get a hot sauce name in the credits, a copy of the script, so you can follow along while we're shooting the movie, and special thanks. So
Nice.
so it's going well. Yeah, it's going well. I've learned a lot. We kind of there was a moment. There was a moment in time where BJ had said, "Hey, maybe we should wait a minute on this and give it some more thought because I was just so gung ho, ready to go." And my mindset was like, I could probably take the next year. I could go to Barnes and Noble right now. We still have one, a brick and mortar store in our area. I can go to that store right now. I can go over the filmmaking section. And I could probably find 6 books that are going to teach me a lot about crowdfunding for movies. And I could take the next year and read each 6 of those. But then by the end of it, I'm going to waste a whole year. And I says, we jump in now and I'll learn more through doing it now than I will have learned in that year that we wasted in the 6 books. So I said I'd rather just do it. And there was there's some other contemplations about like shooting and I've had people ask like, oh well, have you shot anything yet for it? Did you shoot the short? Like why didn't you shoot the short? Why didn't you shoot like a short scene and yada yada? And my feeling also, maybe I'm being a little cocky, I was just like, this is my second feature film. I've directed probably 20 short films. I don't want to direct a short film. I want to go make the movie. And again,
Yeah.
if I go shoot the short film, then the time it takes me to shoot the damn thing, make it look good, all the sound design, get everything, especially get all the costumes, get all the clothing, get all the guns, get everything that we need. By the time I do all that, we might as well just shoot the eight extra scenes I need just to make the movie. So instead of putting it all in the closet and waiting, so um, so we haven't shot anything yet because we're gonna go shoot the fucking movie. But I've been listening to a lot of Robert Rodriguez did a Joe Rogan podcast recently. And then he's promoting his audiobook for when he made his $7,000 movie. And I even say this to you, buddy. I think that I've listened to I've listened to that Rogan episode twice over
Hmm.
just to hear him with that same mentality of like, dude, just do it. Like, don't wait. Just like you'll learn more by jumping in than you will by like hesitating and all that other stuff. There's one part where somebody says, "Hey man, yeah, I want to be a filmmaker." He's got great, put it on your headstone. Wanted to be a filmmaker. It's like there's a difference. Like you gonna be a filmmaker or wanted to be, and I was like, "Fuck, okay." So here we are. We got 2 weeks left in the campaign, and we're casting, and we're looking at dates, and we're fucking moving on, man. So
Well,
that's
I
Left
think
4 Dead.
yeah, the, I mean, the the more you raise, obviously, like the more production value you can get and more resources you have when you go to shoot.
Yeah.
But I think some of the stuff we've put together just on limited budgets, like how creative we've been, like, I think that helps and spurs, and even looking at other filmmakers that we like aspire to, like Steven Soderbergh, right? Or,
Mhm.
any of them. They talk about how sometimes like a crisis comes up, there's not money for X, Y, or Z, so they rethink it, and then
Yeah.
it becomes it becomes this other thing. It forces you to be yet even more creative,
Hmm.
right? And just going to listening to others in the industry, others who've like produced films and then have them premiered in Slam Dance and Sundance and sold them off and whatnot. Funding is always an ever at our level is always an ever always on mode, right? Like to a certain extent, like your funding production and pre-production right now, but there's also the opportunity down the road to do post-production or hell, I mean, I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I mean, listening to Christopher Nolan, right? Like it took him years to make the following because he would shoot while he had money, and then when he ran out,
Yeah.
put the brakes on it, and then he'd pick it up later on. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of filmmakers have talked about
Yeah.
doing so.
Well, Scorsese did that with his one as well. Who's knocking at my door? Like you can kind
Mhm.
of tell, like Harvey Keitel has changed a little bit in the course. Like the movie's set in like 2 days, but he would shoot. Like then he'd have to go work and make a little bit of money, and then shoot some more and go along. And kind of makes me wonder, like you and I back in the day when we were going to college, there's kind of a mindset of like it doesn't matter if I have one class or four classes. I just feel busy.
Yep.
Like and we kind of like adapt to what we have, and you have one class, and so you kind of adapt down, and then once you get adapted to it, then all of a sudden you just still feel just as busy as you did when you had four classes. It makes me wonder if like if you're making a movie for $7,000 or if you're making a movie for $200,000, or sorry, 2 million, 200 million. Let's say you're making a $200 million movie. Like, is the pressure the same? Like, or do you ever just feel like you've got plenty of money? Like, like if James Gunn's like making his Superman, is he having the same thought like that we'll be having making the $7,000 movie, going like, fuck, we just don't have enough money. Like it just probably never ends. Like you probably never sit there and go like, man, we have plenty. Like of money. But I think that like dialogue, less is more. And in a sense, like sometimes less money helps you be creative. There's movies that we've seen that have tanked because I think they had too much money and they didn't need to be creative enough. But
Sure. I mean, it's one of my it's probably my favorite movie of all time, and I go back and I watch it every year, sometimes multiple times a year. I watched a documentary on it recently. It's like RoboCop.
hmm
Like I mean, the stories about that movie I've heard time and time again, then hearing all the filmmakers and the actors talk about it, like you know they they envisioned when they wrote the screenplay and when they were talking about first making the film before they got the suit built and everything. They talked about how RoboCop was supposed to be fluid like Spider-Man. Like he was supposed to be just be like fast and I mean, but that's what their vision of RoboCop was. And by the time they got the suit back, like they get Peter Weller in the suit and he's trained and done everything for that and he's just like fuck this isn't going to work and they get his coach out and he's like all right fine and then they watch an Eisenstein film Ivan the Terrible I believe it is yeah it's Ivan the Terrible and like he's like everything we'll strip certain parts of the suit out to give you more flexibility and freedom but it's all going to be like robotic and like sharp motions and slow instead and again, like I probably have seen RoboCop more than any other movie, and I watch it and like it doesn't feel limited by that. But you think about like
yeah,
they almost shut down the production on that movie because they were making. I mean, I know I had a budget, but it was like a first time. It was a guy who'd been producing, but I think it was his first time as like the main producer, and the screenwriters also is kind of their first time getting everything set up, and it didn't have like tens of millions of dollars. I think it had like a five or maybe a $10 million budget or something like that. But you think about all the effects in that movie, all the blood
yeah,
in that movie, all the guns, all the puppets, like yeah, and they almost scrapped it because the suit didn't work the way they thought, but it forced them to be
great,
innovative
yeah,
and solve that problem. And we have like what to me is like one of the greatest films and one of the greatest film franchises with the most potential that is just underutilized, unfortunately.
yeah,
So, but anyway, no, I think that's cool, and like it's the beginning of yet another journey, right? And it doesn't
hmm
like $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, like it allows you to get the resources needed to make the movie and get the movie in front of people, right? And if it's not all
yeah.
funded now, Like it shouldn't be like that's not really an obstacle, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't been for Robert Rodriguez, or I'm sure he would have loved to have made El Mariachi for $100,000, right? But
Hmm.
for $7,000, he made a kick-ass movie, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you just make your budget your aesthetic, and yeah,
Hmm. Wait, yeah, he says his terminology is like you take chicken shit and you make chicken salad with it.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and he also kind of, yeah, and I've read his book twice over the years. I got it originally. I used to keep the receipts and use them as the bookmark, and so I had the book the other day, and I was looking at it, and I had the receipt, and I bought it originally in 2003. Um, but then I read it again in college because I did a report on it. But like, he kind of reminds everybody that there's a moment movie to the like a Mexican VHS action distribution company. There's like many of them, I guess, and all of them rejected El Mariachi. And so he was really bummed out. He was like it was Christmas, and he didn't have the money that he thought he was going to have because he didn't sell his movie. And he remember being really down in the dumps. But 2 months later, he's at Sundance, and Columbia is now offering 10 times what some Mexican VHS market would have offered him. And so, kind of also a reminder, like there's these moments where we have lows, but like we just have to like push through. So like if you're, if you start a crowdfunding campaign and it's not necessarily tracking to score 100%, hey, but guess what? Like we're still, you can still have the money and you can still go make the movie and just just do it anyways. Do with what you have. Like then we're saying less is more. You'll be more creative,
Yeah.
but or at least that's my hope right now. In about 2 months from now, when I feel like I'll be over there going like, God, it's a bad week to quit smoking and whatnot, bad week to quit drinking. How's the production going? Because production is its own beast. Everything's fun now because I'm indoors, but this movie's set outside and we're shooting in July in Utah. So,
Well,
so
you have a good chance of getting apocalyptic skies with the smog that will settle in above, but
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
it'll
Yeah,
it'll provide
uh-huh.
some diffusion, and
Yeah,
really, it's a blessing, In fact, you could put a subtitle on your film called "The Conqueror." It is filmed in Utah. Gave the Duke cancer. Don't count yourself
yep.
out. But
Well,
yeah,
there's
no.
speaking of, so I long time ago, a friend of ours who like he was an alright guy. We had a falling out, but he gave me this coffee book that was it was when Hollywood came to town, and I had it sitting. Or no, sorry, when Hollywood came to Utah is what it was, and it was all about these movies that were made in Utah. And The Conqueror with John Wayne is one of them, as you just mentioned. Like notoriously, like everybody got cancer on that fucking film because they're like 5 miles away from Oppenheimer and whatnot. Um, and I had a book for a long time, and then last year they were celebrating 100 years of film in Utah. I was at the Egyptian Theater, and at the Paris Egyptian Theater downtown Ogden, and the author was there, and he was talking about that. He did a whole hour chatting about the book, and I thought, shit, I never read that book. It was given to me, and I never read it. And I came back home, I started looking for the fucker, and I couldn't find it. And then I started realizing I was like, I think I threw it away. I think because of the
Oh,
soured friendship that I had with the other person, and then also the fact that it was just like because it is a coffee table book, and I don't typically read those in a sense, and so I kind of just like dismissed it as, and I just tossed it, because I can't find it by any means. So the next month, a couple months into it, we do Convicts and Chocolate, a movie that was set for a film festival in Helper City. It was focused around 100 years of filmmaking in Utah, and so we make Convicts and Chocolate a parody of Forrest Gump and Con Air, and then we win, and the prizes were a bunch of stuff, but one of them was the new edition of When Hollywood Came to Town, celebrating 100 years of filming in Utah. And I thought, well, now this is the second time this book has come into my life, and now we're talking about making Left for Dead and focusing it heavily, like it's going to be outside, and we live in Utah, so it's going to be shot in Utah. So I'm currently almost done with the book, how when Hollywood came to Utah, and I've learned a lot about film production, especially through the 1920s and the 40s and 50s of Western films and things like that, and earmarking locations. But so that's my story on that book. By the second time it came around, I was like, it's telling me something, and I think I just need to read this, and we're gonna go find some locations. So,
I've I took that book, and I actually did read it, and yeah, it's a
oh, you did? Dang,
it, yeah, it is a
cool.
red book. I haven't read it since I probably first got it, so it's been a hot half minute, but yeah, I mean Utah's got a really rich history of film, and Utah's a beautiful landscape. You know, I there's a lot of things I miss about it, but you know, I think we, you know, just because of budgets and whatnot, there's a lot of times where we only focused on, um, you know, what we had on hand. But right before I moved, we were, you know, we talked about moving down, not moving down, but shooting something down in Moab, right? And doing a little bit of grill stuff and making something so we get more production value because it's beautiful down there. People know about it, but a lot of people don't get a chance to see it. And we lived right there. But
Mhm.
actually, revisit that short. It's a short film because I wanted it to be part of an anthology. But I found out here in Washington there are petroglyphs not too far from me where it's like ancient cave carvings and drawings on rock.
Yeah.
So, uh, and one of them's a fertility god. So it all fits into the plan. But you know, you just there's so much around you. Like you know, it's funny that uh, yeah, I don't think it's talking trash, but I think a lot of people like make the mistake of trying to like, oh, this is set in Hollywood. It's like, yeah, it's not Hollywood, and we know because Hollywood doesn't have like,
This, yeah,
yeah. I mean, just the architecture, right? I mean, you've been to Los
yeah.
Angeles, like the architecture changes from block to block, and
Hmm.
and each township has a very different style. Like it's its own thing, and it would be like, you
Yeah.
know, downtown Los Angeles, like that's make it your own thing and make it special and make it bigger, you know.
Yeah.
No, but that's funny. I haven't thought about that book in a while. It's on the shelf. Dust it off and pick it up again.
Yeah. That's been cool. Um, yeah, there's a family called these Perry brothers who were these guys that kept bringing in the movies into town. They have a place called the Perry Lodge. I guess John Wayne actually commissioned to have the swimming pool be put into the Perry Lodge.
Huh.
But it comes up a lot throughout the book, because that's where production crews would stay, actors would stay, when they were like, shooting movies out in southern Utah. So I looked it up, and Perry Lodge is still active, still an active hotel, and the prices are good too. And so we're thinking about. I mean, everything looks nice on the website, and of course, and but so we're thinking about taking the kids here soon, which will also be a side trip, excuse me, to Location Scout as we go back down in July to shoot um, other stuff for the movie. But I want to go down there ahead of time and kind of give it a check out. And plus, also, it's a historic location, and I like hunt. I mean, you as well. We've hunted down locate movie locations. Heat, Lebowski, like the restaurant where De Niro and Al Pacino had lunch at or had coffee in, Heat is now gone. But Jason and I have been there on several occasions. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a bummer. It's gone. Did they raise it to the ground, or is it just a different restaurant now?
No, I think the building's still there. I'm not sure what it is though, but
Hmm.
it was Kate's. It used to be called Kate's Mantilli's or something like that,
Yeah.
and now, so I mean, if they that's a great question. I should probably research it because if it is a new restaurant, like, and did they just complete? pour out all the entire aesthetic, then of course it's not going to look like the place from Heat. But at least you know that you'll be in the building that once was there, that they did it
Yeah.
once, though, even though if it's completely, moved over. Um,
I mean, you and I
yeah,
went in there a couple times, and
yeah,
we got pictures in the chairs. Like
yeah. Both times we just request like where did they sit, and they would just
yeah,
post right there. Yeah, so
yeah. No, that's yeah. I mean, it's hey, sometimes you got to do those on the sly scouting trips. Like I said with that petroglyph thing, I actually like, all right, let me get the kids out there and take a look at it, see what it looks like, and then find out in the land like how much guerrilla filmmaking I can do. I
uh-huh.
mean, I think
Oh
this
yeah.
is a recurring theme in our lives. Like, would I like money for permits? Yeah, absolutely. I would love money for permits. That takes money, and when you're on a budget of like you and I have
Yeah.
both made feature films for around, I think around $10,000 each. Like
Mm.
it's every dollar is going into the production, so any dollar
Yeah.
taken is taken away from some other part of the production, right?
Yeah. Well, if they didn't make film permits so damn expensive, then we wouldn't have to, get around it. But in our pre-chat before the recording, like mentioned, like Werner Herzog did an interview about teaching his film students how to fake a permit. But like I watched Werner Herzog's like master class, and in there he chats about a moment where like they went into, I think it was China. It was some country where like you need to get government permission to even film there, and they crossed the border and then started filming, and then like they were going through like a street market, and he was like, I saw the cops ahead of me, and I just knew. He was like they stop us, like we're getting arrested, and that's the deal. And they were able to walk past the cops, and then immediately they stopped. They did the scene, they stopped recording, and they left the country with the footage. Never got permission from the government, and never like got his permit. But he does that kind of shit all the time. Like just like you film first, worry about the other part later. And
Yeah.
whatnot. So if you see Monument Valley, which is a goal of mine to have, and Left for Dead, you see Monument Valley. I can't make any guarantee right now that that there's going to be permission. You can just know that was a guerrilla moment. So
Hey, if you hit your funding goal, then
if I hit the
the bridge.
funding goal, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, there's a lot we can do for fun. If we hit the funding goal, it's on top of Monument Valley. So
There's a helicopter crane over the top.
yeah. It's gonna look like Mission Impossible 2 for a minute. Whatnot. It's like
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, it is, these, we also live in the age of influencer uh, and travel nation. Like, it's not even us. Like, it is so I live in a place where, like, the Seattle area, tourists come all the time, and then they come in and they have, like we were talking about, they have that stick that they can do like a steady shot on a stick with a DSLR, or they have like
yeah.
handheld gimbals for both DSLRs or their phones. Like there are a lot of people that are taking pictures on throughout the town on the ferry system. Just like it is kind of accepted,
Hmm.
right? And people are Facebooking and doing live, and like it's just it's been a thing for a long time.
Hmm.
You can kind of get away with it is not the maybe the right phrase, but it's socially acceptable. Just be filming kind of
Yeah.
yourself at all times. And I bet if you said it was for a travel vlog or for your anything else, like people would be
Hmm.
like, "Oh yeah, cool. What's it called?" And then you lie and then go about your day, and nobody else
Yeah.
think twice. But I mean, we've. It's not to say that we've never gotten permission. Like we've talked to mayors of cities before and gotten permission and worked with them to get resources as far as like being able to film in towns and whatnot. And coordinated with different like members of different communities. Like we've done a lot of coordination and a lot of working with on a really tight budget. So it's
Mhm.
not to say that we go guerrilla 100% of the time, but and it's
Yeah.
it's sometimes like it comes down to a $2,000 permit versus having $2,000 so you can have more paid extras to make a shot better. I'd rather have the shot that looks better
Yeah.
than have or
Because once you
have
have the
lodging for remote locations, like we were talking
yeah,
like you're talking about.
yeah. I mean, once you have the shot, you have the shot. It's forever there. So
Hmm.
you just need that moment where you can actually capture it. And I don't know, like there we've as much coordination we've done with people as well. Like uh when we shot on the Con Air airplane out in West Wendover, like we didn't do that guerrilla style. That was like we had permission to go use it for the day. Now they said that they would be open, and if people showed up, we should be accommodating. And we really only had a few people show up that we just kind of had to stop for a second. But at least the Air Force Museum knew that we were there and gave us permission to shoot there.
Yeah,
And they
absolutely.
actually, and the only thing that they asked was just that we make some type of donation for them. And so, so you don't get a lot of locations free like that. But there's been other times where you and I or Madison have reached out to city officials or to the Utah Film Commission or people who are representatives of the Utah Film Commission in our city. And unfortunately, like money talks. And when we're making movies at like the level that we're making, we don't get any help from them. Uh, um, and so we're kind of like in like when you're at the micro budget to no budget movie making, we kind of find ourselves like you're left with the choice of like you can't of quitting, which you can't do. So now the only other choice is to well then go do it guerrilla style and shoot it anyways. So
Yeah,
because you're
I
not
mean, you and I filmed like we filmed in downtown Ogden, and I'm not going to say all the things that we've filmed and some of the places, but I mean, we were on the Parkway, River Parkway once. We filmed like a scene for my horror film Ancient Evil,
yeah.
29, where we kill in a sense. I don't know, was it 10 people in a
Hmm. We even did
yeah.
a one take. We even did almost a oneer with like
I
three
know.
kills.
Yeah. So we had a good time, and I mean we had pickaxes and we had
Mm,
like instrument like
a baseball
all
bat,
sorts of stuff. Yeah, we had
a shovel.
shovel, we had fake blood, all
Hmm.
sorts of stuff. Like yeah, anyway, and hell, we filmed also in downtown areas where we had a hammer and fake blood, and you're chasing me around, then we're smashing the fake blood into your hammer into fake blood and spraying it all. Like
Yeah.
sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you can afford it, you should do it. If you
Yeah.
can't afford it, you shouldn't be deterred. Figure out a way to do it.
You should steal it.
That's
That's what you should do.
I'm I'm not gonna say steal it, but figure out a way. Yeah.
Don't tell him I said that. Don't be coming back to me and calling me from jail. Like, uh
Ryan said just take whatever you wanted, put it on the tab.
huh. Seabass said that.
But yeah, so well, that's cool. I know that yeah, uh, obviously like all the luck. I hope that like I know there's a little bit of a gap on the funding goal, but hope that whatever you can get to make your value, like the production value, bigger and make
Yeah.
the film what it deserves to be. Like I'm rooting for you on that. And then I think just kind of just kind of talking about like it's interesting, like how much, for those who've never made a movie, there's a lot of learnings that go into it, and there's a lot of failures for just as many successes. And I think Ryan and I both in our journeys have talked about, like, we've both made a lot of short films to learn what to do and what not to do. And it's at the point where, like, short films are good for learning, but once you hit a certain point, like, you're you have the potential to spend, $10,000 on a short film, and if you're going to spend that much money, you might as well make it into a feature film. And I think that's where, you know, for me, and I don't want to speak for you, but since we talk a lot about these same things, like, done a lot of learning, even in making my feature film and your feature film. We learned some other things of what to do and what not to do, right?
Mhm.
And with that comes, like, all right, the learnings, you apply them to the next one, move on. So I'm excited to see what you do with your second feature film, and I like that it's not in the same not in the same vein, right? Like,
Yeah.
we've done talking, not talking head picture. I don't know.
Yeah.
Human
I,
relationship
I call
pieces.
yeah. I called Married and Loving It a Talking Heads like movie, but I just kind of pigeonholed it a little bit. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It, the first movie was set in one location. It was a house, all dialogue. Sec other movie set in the vast thing of Utah, no dialogue. so, so
Yeah. But luckily,
so
there's a lot of places you
mhm,
can get away with filming some. I mean, again, Utah's so big.
mhm,
It's got a lot of beautiful spaces, but it's also got a lot of open spaces because the population of Utah is still pretty small compared to how big that state is. So you can
mhm,
drive to fairly remote locations on a budget. So,
mhm.
but anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. I'm excited to hear
Yeah,
it, and
I'm
hopefully,
excited.
like, I obviously, like, being able to do the whole thing. I don't know, but if there are some weekends or whatnot, like, let me know what your schedule is. I'd love to
Yeah.
try to help out where and when I can.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Let you know what the dates are, and
yeah,
you just take a look at it and see. So yeah,
yeah,
that'd be cool. That'd be way cool.
yeah. And but I think, we talk a lot about filmmaking. I think part of the other part is the research that gets us there, right? I
Mhm.
don't I don't know. Like, it's hard to. I mean, you're gearing up for production, so I know your time's limited. But have you seen anything recently?
Yeah. I mean, I saw the new Mission Impossible, just like
Oh,
everybody
dang.
else did, apparently, because it made more money in the opening weekend than any of the other movies did in their opening weekend. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which is yeah. So like you said earlier, when Tom Cruise is like yelling at people about like we're here to save the movie industry, like he's not dinking around, man. Like that's what they're yeah, they're bringing back people back to the cinemas. So.
Yeah, I also saw it. I
Oh,
really enjoyed it. And
yeah.
I think I was reading something that was interesting to me, where they were talking about, like, I think they filmed it, and this is Final Reckoning, and the other one was Dead Reckoning. I think they kind of filmed them back to back or shortly after, but they were talking about, like, there's some challenges because you had a couple of strikes in between, and then the pandemic and whatnot. So I think the budget for it actually went up quite a bit. And I was reading, like, um, it probably cost $300 to $400 million to make that movie specifically. I was like, man, that's insane. And it's funny because as much as people were, like, in the same year, in the same summer, they're saying, like, Sinners, is it gonna be a success? Because, like, God, it's the like highest grossing non, like, sequel R-rated film of all time. They're like, will it make its money back? I'm like, we're gonna question that, but they were making an argument that, like, regardless of a 300 $400 million budget, that Mission Impossible is successful. It's like, how how can that be, and I guess part of it is because it's part of a franchise. So every time they release a new one, like it generates interest in the old films,
Oh
which then
yeah,
generates revenue back into the like for Paramount. It's just basically like it's just printing their own money because people want to
yeah,
get caught up on the old films or whatnot. And
yeah.
they were saying same article was I think the estimation was Mission Impossible is still like the very first one makes about $10 million a year in licensing and revenue. Like that's so I guess yeah, a $300 million movie, but they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's going to make its money back because it's a printing press. I'm like, oh,
hmm Well, because every box set that came before that is obsolete now, so you have to buy another box set. So like, like, long time ago when Die Hard with the Vengeance came out, they were selling the box set that was like it was like Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, and then the third VHS tape in the thing was like the behind the scenes to Die Hard with the Vengeance, which then made it simple because then when the movie came out, I just bought Die Hard with a Vengeance on VHS, and then just slipped it in. So you still had like it basically gave you that nice open spot so you could have all three movies in the same thing.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, if, at any point there's I'm sure back in the day there was a Mission Impossible 1 and 2 box set
yeah.
that turned into a 1 and 3 box set that turned into like a collect all four kind of thing, and I bet even with Dead Reckoning, excuse me, while they even knew they while they even knew that like there's a part two to that, like eight's coming out, like we all know it for sure, but I bet they still sold a box set that was just the 7 movies. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame them. I did the same. Like, so yeah, I'm not faulting them for knowing how the math works. Like, so and it's like somebody's the other day we were talking about like Fast and Furious is like they stop if we stop going to see it, they'll stop making them.
Yeah.
But because everybody sees it, they make them. So
I think the Mission Impossible is the American equivalent of James Bond at this point, right?
yeah.
They're huge movies, they're spectacles, there's something to see, and
hmm
I felt like this one, just like because it's rumored that's Tom Cruise's last one, and seeing some of the stunts like in the trailers is like this is nuts, and
Yeah.
going and seeing it like I won't lie, like the first well they the Mission Impossible films like quality control like also kind of goes a certain way through the years, but I do like there's a point where like it hit number four, and in some ways number four was a bridge too far for me because it was like Ghost Protocol, like it should just like it should just be called Ethan Hunt takes 500 blows to the head. He'll
yeah.
like fall off 2 stories and hit his head on an I beam on the way down. By the end of that movie, he should be a slathering idiot, and yet he's still like running around, and it kind of becomes like a superhero film, kind of like the Fast and
Yeah.
Furious movies. Like they become superhero films at a certain point. But I felt like they start grounding them in reality for a couple of films, but for those who want to see the new one, like it is a superhero film and a popcorn film, but it's also and the stunts and the action is breathtaking in the film. And also, I think what's interesting about that movie, and I don't want to give away for those, but like some of the subject matter in that movie, you think about it being written 5 years ago or whatever when they started
hmm
prepping that first one, like what they anticipated as well is actually
hmm
kind of frightening when you think about it. Like,
yeah.
so it's definitely worth a see. And for me, like I went and saw it in IMAX, and I'd recommend seeing it as big as possible
Mhm.
because some of those stunts, like you're never gonna be able to see it again. And I think, man, just being able to see them, there's times where it's like Tom Cruise is really doing that, and is he? He absolutely is. And there's a safety mechanism that movie magic like erases, but it totally doesn't look like. I mean, this is the man who was holding on to the side of a plane like 3 or 4 movies back, like as it's
Hmm.
taking off from the ground, he's on the side of a plane, or like parachuting after jumping off of a moving motorcycle in the
Yeah.
last movie, and like the stunts that they've done in these films is just incredible. I think the new one's
Hmm.
worth seeing just for the spectacle of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that on a marketing level, it was best. I liked how the trailer gave you hints of what the stunts were going to be, but
Hmm.
like when it came to Dead Reckoning, I think we'd all seen that bike jump like so many times that, and there were so many behind the scenes things that came out before the movie even came out. So by the time it happened, unfortunately for me at least, it wasn't as a grand spectacle because I just had seen it so many times. It's
Sure.
similar to like when No Time to Die came out, like in the trailer, like there's a oh well, there's a part, but he's like rides this motorcycle like up this big set of stairs, and then like, and it was in the trailer, but then also days before that, not days before that, but months leading into it, there was all the behind the scenes and how they shot that part, and it was kind of like, well, it ruins the magic then when I finally see it because I've already seen the trick 100 times. So I thought it was best in the marketing that they didn't. You could tell that there was a plain something, especially like the marketing. Like Tom Cruise would be like he'd be sitting in an airplane and go like, "Hey everybody, Mission Impossible trailer out tomorrow," and then jump out the fucking airplane. Like so, or there's one where I think he's falling and essentially I didn't see it in the movie. Oh no, I did see it in the movie. Yeah, he's falling and he's is when he's trying to but there's a video like so he figured out how to like do the where he's so in the promo he's falling and he's like saying to the camera like, "Hey everybody, blah 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 blah, see it at the theaters," and then spins away. But then remember now they built a rig that actually was on his waist with the camera so that he's falling
Oh,
in the movie when he's trying to connect the one thing to the other thing, and I won't say what the things are. But like, yeah, he's actually falling and trying to achieve doing that or whatever, or
huh.
mimicking it. So yeah, it was. I think about it, I was like, huh, actually, that was him falling. Um, I liked
Yeah.
most how it tied a lot of elements from the other movies together. Um, with characters who come back from the first movie, characters who are tied into the first movie, elements from the third movie, like they came in. Like I liked that aspect of it more as well. Um, there's been times where I don't know. Sometimes I mean, it's his character. It is his Ethan Hunt character. But yeah, like by part four, there was a moment where I was like, it just doesn't feel like it's the same Ethan Hunt from like the first movie.
Yeah.
And there's almost sometimes felt like there was always a different Ethan Hunt. And I think that, and I believe his original idea was that each movie would be directed by a new director. But then about by the time he brought in Christopher
McGuire.
McGuire, yeah, like obviously he's directed like the last four, and I think that's sometimes why the other ones, the last several, feel all the same though now, like five, six, seven, and eight. Um, but I liked it a lot. There's only one thing that I was like that I missed a little bit, and I can say is that there's not enough of the Mission Impossible mask stuff. Like I think there's only one moment in the entire movie where it happens, but like it never comes back up again.
They do it quite a bit in the previous film. That's probably why. I did like so having watched like a bunch of them to prep for the new one.
Hmm.
I think it's funny too because I thought, well, since these are a continuation, it's probably gonna be more closely interconnected. But I thought it was interesting though that like you had made the observation forever and a day ago and brought it up to my attention. I was like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. But like Tom Cruise like changes his hair basically every new movie. Like he's got a slightly different hairstyle so that it feels like he's a different character. And so it's like, all right, you got part one of this movie, and then they in the marketing they changed it, and then it goes from Dead Reckoning Part Two to Final Reckoning, and then you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, no, he's totally got it. Like he's totally got a different hairstyle, and they play it off. There's a good reason
Hmm.
why and whatnot, but yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. Like it's after a certain point in those movies, like there's definitely, like I said, they kind of hit like spectacle superhero levels, right? Like the very first movie, very intimate in it, and it's very like cerebral. Second movie is like balls to the wall action. Then the third one comes back around where it's more of that cerebral, like a lot of urgency, a lot of danger, right? In that third movie
Hmm.
that J.J. Abrams directed, and then they become kind of a different thing. And I think there's a lot of things I love. It's not perfect, not a perfect film. There's very few films that are, but I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think seeing it. My kids had never seen an IMAX movie before, so we all sat there
Oh,
and
cool.
having it be larger than life and and seeing their like reaction to it, it was it was a really cool experience, and
Mm.
I'm so glad I saw, like I said, on the biggest screen. Some of the stunts are just so massive. Being able to experience them in that way, like it'll
Mhm.
never it'll never happen again. Like I tried to, my kids were
Yeah.
like, "So what's an IMAX movie like?" And I was like, I can't explain it to you. You just kind of have to experience it. Like, because I could say like,
Yeah.
oh, the formatting and the aspect. Right? No, they don't give two shits about that. They like
Mhm.
just gonna it's gonna take you in, and then yeah, it was a blast. I'm glad I got to see it. I'm glad you saw it. Like,
Yeah.
it's an awesome film.
Mhm. It's good. And will it be their last one? I don't know. I know there's always the like I'm yeah, there's always the I don't money talks. So like or maybe this is the last one with him. I don't know.
Yeah,
And it felt like that around part 4. Like it felt like there was a I think turbulent stuff that was going on with PR wise with Tom Cruise at the time. Like there was almost like they're bringing in Jeremy Renner for the possible like handoff. But then the movie made so much damn money, they then Tom Cruise stayed in it. It
which
seems
is
like
funny because that's the second time that poor bastard got shafted because they tried to do the same thing with the Jason Bourne
with the
movies
Jason
where
Bourne movies,
Jeremy,
yeah,
yeah, they brought in Jeremy Renner to do a replacement, and then
yeah. And then after that, they just made another Matt Damon one, and it did better, so they just like left it. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, poor
yeah.
bastard. I'm sure he cries himself to sleep as he dots away his tears with his big, wads of cash. Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, the fourth one, like, yeah. I mean, the first one's spectacular. The second one, I love John Woo's movie, but it definitely upped the dumb quite a bit, and it
Yeah.
went pure spectacle. And there's some, I mean, him rock climbing in that movie, like, yeah, it is larger than life, and some of the stunts in that, like, are incredible as well. But when they bring it back down to reality for the third one, as much
Good.
reality as
Yeah.
there is in those movies, like you go to do four and there's still spectacle to it, but it felt a lot more hollow. And then I think making the switch, like going into that like narrative storytelling where they did it with like Daniel Craig's James Bond franchise, I think it kind of lines up pretty close, right? Where it's like we're gonna tell an interconnected story, and it's gonna be this thing, and it makes it worth seeing versus like the highs and lows of some of the other like James
Hmm.
Bond years, where it's like,
Because by part 5, the villain shows up multiple times.
mhm.
Like the villain for 5 shows up again for 6, and it's kind of there. I don't know, but I do have this thing where I admitted to another friend that messaged me about the opinions on the movies, and I have this thing where sometimes I walk out of a movie and I'm somewhat. I mean, I like it, but I don't like love it. And then there's just sometimes I need to see it twice. And so I remember with Fallout, I was like, yeah, that was good. I liked it, but I didn't like love it. Then on another viewing later, I remember being more like, wow, that was really a great movie. And having like out of the ones that that same director did, for some reason I still feel like 5 and 6 are the ones I like more than I do the 7 and 8. But
Sure.
um, I think there's a lot of talking in this fucking new one. Oh, well, like, there's a moment where I mean, it pays it off because there's a 20-minute airplane scene, but there are some moments where we're just going through bureaucratical shit. I'm like, ah, damn it, like when's the? I thought there was a little much there, but I
I
did
hear
like
you.
did like
But
it, yeah.
I'll say this though, for being a damn near 3 hour movie, like I had three kids in with me, and not a single one of them went to the bathroom. Like they
Yeah,
were just engaged the whole
that's
time.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of. It was a lot of fun. It's nice to have a reason to go to the movies, and honestly, it was cool to see that like Lilo and Stitch, Mission Impossible, are making a thing where people are talking about the death of cinema in a lot of ways, and it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate because I miss seeing movies with people. I've forgotten how much fun it can be. And when we went to the IMAX, it was in Seattle, and you couldn't reserve your seats. Like you could buy your tickets online, but you couldn't
Uh
reserve your seats. So we had to show up like the old days, and I had to explain it to my kids while we were in line. They're like,
oh.
"Why?" They're like, "Why are we waiting outside the movie theater?" I was like, "Because we want to get the best possible seats." And they're like,
See.
yeah, yeah, and they're like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, yeah. I was like, we used to sit and play like, so we like played some like dumb fun games. It's like I remember playing cards and sitting there on a Friday
hmm
night waiting to go see whatever the new blockbuster movie was out, and like we'd be sitting in the mall in lines queued up for like the 7 o'clock show. Is this the 7 o'clock showing? All right, cool, yeah.
hmm
The 8 o'clock showings over there, and they're playing cards in that one. They're lined up for it already. I mean, like there's something fun about seeing a movie with people.
hmm
I forget how much I miss that. I live in a kind of a smaller place, and sometimes you don't you don't see as many people in the movie theaters. But I don't know, like it's fun when as dorky and dumb as it is, because nobody who made the movie can hear it. Like when people are applauding and cheering and shit after or
hmm
even during a movie, like it sweeps you up into it a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes it the experience, right?
hmm I think
You
there's
know,
definitely something in the as human beings the way that the same way that like animals can kind of like instinctively know they sense like a feeling from another animal. That's kind of a part of their communication, like the way that we dog can like tell if somebody's like going into a seizure or something like that. Like we all have an aura that we give off, and when we're sitting in the theater collectively, like something is heightened. And like if you watched, I think like if you watched Hangover by yourself, would it be as funny to you as it was watching it 300 other people? Like the or like a scary, like if you watch a scary movie, is it as terrifying, like, or like is it was when we were all sitting there together and we all felt it, kind of a thing. When I saw Armageddon, and that movie has been like, we look back on it kind of as like a bit of a joke a little bit. But when that movie came out, I remember being, and I use the word literally sparingly, but I was literally on the edge of my seat, in that sense of like I was sitting at the edge of the seat, going like, "Oh my god!" Like what's going, like, as it was an action packed nail biter from Michael Bay, who had yet to do 6 Transformer movies, so I didn't know how ridiculous it was going to get. Excuse me, but it was also a packed theater. It was opening weekend. It was,
yeah.
or even that Friday night. So I can't remember when I saw Armageddon. I saw it opening weekend though, but yeah, there's something we collectively give off an aura and then we feed into it collectively. It's like the same way that there's that phenomenon when there's like when there's a riot going on, like people will act in a way that they would not have normally acted. But when there's 100 people rioting, they just kind of, yeah, sure, I'll smash something. And we do it at like sports games as well. Like there's something more heightened about when you watch the game by yourself compared to if you have people over at your house compared to if you're watching it live and with 1,000 people in the stadium. Like it just something high brings it up, and that's what I think is missed when we talk about watching movies on our couch and stuff. And I don't know about the IMAX movie that you went on in, but every movie theater here that's at least a megaplex, and I'm going to call them out, their aesthetic is not of the megaplex isn't historic by any means. I don't, and I think they've ruined that aspect of it. They've converted every one of their theaters now into a luxury box seating, so it's like you're sitting, and even the IMAX is that way too.
Even at
Where like,
is it Auditorium 4 was the huge one where it was like hundreds and hundreds of people, not like 50.
yeah,
It's yeah, that is
yes,
a bummer.
they renovated everything. So it's like, so on one hand, okay, so if you need to sell tickets like X amount of number of tickets in order to make a good amount of revenue, right?
Yeah.
But if you take a 300 yeah, like a 400 seater theater and turn it into a 300 seater theater because or 250 seating because now it has this extra spacing so that we can all, use a little button to maneuver our legs up on this recliner and all that other stuff. Like you're I don't understand the logic. Like you're drawing in people, but you're only drawing in 200 compared to the 400, and the screen is big anyways. Like, and it was, there could be 400 people watching the movie all at the same time.
Hmm.
So even the IMAX down Legacy Crossing is luxury seating, where we
Uh,
sit, we can do warm or cold, and we can make our little and sit there like we're on a fucking couch at home. And I'd rather be in a crickety rickety like wooden seat in a historic theater than sit in that crap like at that they have at the Megaplex. And I didn't realize they did it with IMAX. When we were walking in, Brandy was like, she was like, hey, I had to get luxury seating. It was all they had. And I thought we'd be in like the luxury row. They did that thing where they put like one row of luxury seats, and they made it high priced or whatever. And then we get in there and like, oh wow, they tore the shit out of this place and turned it into just like sofa seating, um, the entire time. Like where her and I were sitting, don't get me wrong, we have space because like, but really there could have been a third person next to me because there was so much like space between
yeah.
in the two seats, and that her and I were sitting close. Where like watch, but I don't know. I don't like it because I go like, how have we gotten that fat? Is that where we're at now? Like we've gotten so fucking lazy that you can't go to a movie theater and just sit on your ass. You have to have it where your legs are in the fucking air and like you're watching it in your bed or whatever. And I have a TV in my room and I watch a lot of movies in my bed. But that's the whole point of going into the theater, right? It's not to be in that thing so you can eat the popcorn and let it fucking drizzle all over you. I don't do that in my bed, but so that's my thing. That's my gripe. That's my gripe. I went
Well,
on one rant, 8 episodes in, and that's the first one I finally did.
well, not that you shouldn't anyway, but you and Brandy should come up and visit sometime. We'll take you out and around. But that's what I dig about this area, and like I say, because I don't want to give away the charm of this area. But there's a couple theaters, like one's like it's a converted uh like firehouse, so it doesn't have a lot of seating, but it's that
Oh, cool.
old Carmike theater where
Oh,
it's like
nice.
um kind of it's even got the old red colored, seats
Yeah.
like you used to. Yeah, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um But also the other one, there's another one that's in town that they don't like the stuff near me doesn't have any of the like lay down luxury seating, and I don't really miss it because it to me like it kind of becomes distracting, especially with kids because they're like, "Ah,"
Yeah.
and I just want to enjoy the movie, and every time my feet are moving inadvertently, I'm kind of like, I just want to watch
Yeah.
them. So I know, I do know what you mean, but the kids, I mean, to a certain extent, like, I don't think it's an old like get off my lawn moment, but I do think like people need to retrain their brains on how to unplug and enjoy things a little bit more too, and have the patience for things. Like like my kids can sit through a 3 hour Mission Impossible film because like we've watched a variety of types of films. Like they've seen silent films, they've seen
Hmm.
slower. Like I watched recently The Natural with my kids, the Robert Redford
Yeah,
film
cool.
where he's a baseball player, and that is not like a that is not an action-packed film, but yet they still watched it and still enjoyed it because it's interesting and it captures their interest even
Hmm.
being slower. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's fun to
And
experience those things.
we watched Weekend at Bernie's a few weeks ago, and um, I forgot like how long it takes in the movie for them to get to the point where Bernie actually dies, and then they like, and then really a lot of the comedy comes kicking in. But they sat there and they watched it, and when they started dragging his ass around and whatnot, like they were cackling hard, laughing out loud, and I was like, wow, this movie nobody talks about it. I mean, it's not one that, but it's still like because the style of not everything is so quick to cut and all this other stuff. Like
Yeah,
the comedy wasn't um something that I've criticized a lot of is like when it's just when you have it's just like, oh, just put Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson next to each other and just have Kevin Hart just ramble off a bunch of stuff and we'll just see whatever was funny and stitch it together. It's like, yeah, but when the gag is actually written and executed well, like in Weekend at Bernie's, like it can find still a new audience. And so we watched it, and then like the next weekend over, my kids wanted to just like, can we just watch Weekend at Bernie's again? And just popped it back on because the comedy was executed, the camera knows where it's supposed to be, the actors know where they're going to be, um, and so yeah, I guess I'm starting to hit that age where it's like, yeah, well, yeah, it's not the way it used to be, right? Like nothing's the way it used to
yeah,
be, kind of shit all the time. Um, and uh, well, but see, in my area, we don't. Well, the area that you lived in as well. But like, there's not really. We don't have any like single. So Walker Cinema is one where they have like maybe like 5 screens in there, and they still have
yeah,
the old style like the seating where it's just a basic slope heading towards the screen. Then you have single screen theater, the Egyptian theater, Bears Egyptian theater, and then everything else after that is a megaplex until you get to like Kaysville, which is like halfway to Salt Lake. They have one single screen theater there, but like everything else is a megaplex or an AMC, and I think AMC has also converted everything into luxury as well. But there's only one
yeah,
AMC, so it's largely megaplex, which is owned by a very rich Mormon car dealership guy. So depending on the movie, you might not get it here, but like the Cinepoint theater that I worked at when I was a kid, teenager, gone. The drive-in theater that was in Riverdale, gone. Like it's
yeah.
apartments now. And so it's unfortunate we don't have like I do, I do like seeing that when I go to LA, seeing a bunch of theaters. There are just these like, even if they're closed, even if the gates are on it, but there's a single screen theater like just right there. And I wish that there was one of those or two of those here in my town where I could just like, I'm gonna fucking convert this thing into a movie theater and just
I
do a
miss
single screen. Yeah.
the Cinedome aesthetic, like
Yeah.
where it'd be like five, maybe even 600 seats, depending on what, like, because when I was growing up in California, some of them were friggin' huge, and there would be the Cinedome 6 and
Mhm.
the Cinedome 2 and all these other ones, and like because they were projecting it on a 70 millimeter film stock, it was just larger than
Mhm.
life. And I get it. Like, it's probably hard to maintain having all those seats because people fuck things up and cleaning a place that
Yeah.
big. Like, I'm sure it is, but every once in a while you find a place that still has it, and it's a cool aesthetic. And some of the old movie houses too, when you can find them, like they're still out there. In fact, I last year, like the Seattle has a ton of theaters. In fact, I've forgotten like when you're in a big city like that, like what it can be like. But one of them, it was like a like it's another skyscraper, but you go into it
Mhm.
and then you're going up escalators to get to
Oh,
your
Jesus.
theater screens and stuff like that. It's wild. Um, but like I don't know, there's magic about movies, which is why we do this. It's why
Yeah.
we try. It's why we make movies. It's why we uh, try to secure funding to make the dream better every time. But like, I don't know, there's a magic to it, and there's a magic in even if it's something that's well known, right? Like you can see it, but sometimes sharing it with another person is that special sauce of unlocking it again. And I find that a
Yeah.
lot with my kids. I don't want to speak for you, but like I find it a lot with my kids where I'm like, man, I forgot how much fun um uh Dick Tracy. That's a more
Yeah.
appropriate kid movie that I
Uh-huh.
watched with my kids lately. Dick Tracy, like I grew up watching the hell out of that movie and loved it, and then going back through and watching it, and there's some really great shots in that film, and my kids are getting to the age where they start appreciating some of that, or they're picking up that I talk about these things, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Look at that shot!" I'm like, yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Or they're like, "I could tell it's not real, but it looks awesome." Like, yeah, those paintings are fake as hell, but they have that aesthetic that's
Yeah.
it's not a 60-foot dinosaur that's been generated, right? It looks like it's
Mhm.
there, so it feels more real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Yeah, there's so my daughter Sophia, she's done two short films. One of them is the socketing actually. Speaking of that, is the socketing and Convicts and Chocolate will be coming up in the No Fear Film Festival here, which is happening next month at the Utah Arts Fest down in Salt Lake City. So we're happy to be there with two films. But there was one part in Sophie's where she's she's basically pulling out like a water pistol to hit this like killer sock and whatnot. And she says, I want to do this shot like in the circle, like this. And I'm like, okay, 360. She's like, yeah, yeah, just like Speed. I was like, Speed, like, what do you mean just like Speed? She's like, well, there's that part in Speed where, she's like, when the car comes up, or in the very beginning when the Keanu Reeves first shows up, the car goes, and then when they get out of the car and they're gathering their gear in the trunk, she's like, the camera goes around them in a circle. And she's like, so we should do that. And I'm like, not a lot of people talk about that shot in that movie. I'm like, it's a great movie. And I love that shot too. But it wasn't my first choice for when she mentioned 360 shot. And I was like, dang, like you pulled that from, of all the stuff that happens in Speed, that's the part you pulled. And we're like, yeah, I just want to do it where, this happens. And so the camera should do this. And I was like, yeah, yeah, they still get it. They're watching and they consume it, right? And then art begets art in a sense, especially good art, and especially art that doesn't that was made in a different time. But that's also the old time me, like because we talk about Dick Tracy and all that stuff. Yeah, I still say the story. Like I've watched Rampage with Dwayne Johnson and one night, and the crocodiles climb the fucking Empire State Building, wherever it is. Nobody blinked an eye. Not one kid was like, "Whoa, that's amazing!" Like we all just sat there and stared at it. The next night over, we're watching Labyrinth, and the next day we're watching Labyrinth, and there's a moment you can clearly see like it's like velvet black background because they're doing these puppet moments, and the puppets like take their heads and go like this, and shift him over. And Sophie's like, what the hell? She's like, well, how, how, how's that happening? And it's like, because it's a practical effect, but nobody minded when it was a gigantic CGI crocodile. Nobody even blinked. We just all just like, yeah, that happens. And but then there's a practical effect, and it really blows you away. So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like it's I mean, I showed the kids I think it's Gold Rush, Charlie Chaplin, and I mean there's a part where like yeah, they had performing animals, but they had a black bear like following along behind Charlie Chaplin. Was like you guys don't realize how dangerous this is. Like, like if that bear would have attacked Charlie Chaplin, the movie's over. Like that's
yeah, yeah,
like, there's no animal wrangler that's gonna save Charlie Chaplin from that bear. Like you want to talk about a different time, but I don't know. Like the there's all sorts of like Fableman's like we talked about that. Like I just watched that movie and I think I might show it to the kids because I think again it shows the passion for a thing, right? And being like
yeah,
you talk about like they talk about like filmmaking techniques that I was like, oh, we could do that, you know, or I think it's the Robert Rodriguez, bring it back around to Rebel Without a Crew, like Robert Rodriguez like intercutting white frames, right? When he's having the gunshots, like he didn't have the money to make it as big as he wants, but that was white frames, much like the
yeah,
pinholes in Spielberg's early 8 millimeter films. Like it gives you that extra budget and it makes you be innovative
yeah.
in your approach. So uh, I don't know. But well, I know we've covered a lot of topics, and
Hmm.
there's always a million and one, but all good things must come to an end. And Chad, I know you asked me about a recommendation, so I found one that I dusted it off. Oh, let's see if I can get. It's called Delirium by Lamberto Bava, and I will tell you that movie is a gem and a half. And there's a bunch of movies called Delirium. This one is, I think, 1986 or 87, something like that. But and you want to be inspired by a different level of filmmaking and some high level trash. I say go for it. And yeah, yeah, there's a lot of trash. There's inspiration to be taken from a movie like that, and honestly, even the masters, Hitchcock himself, man, Frenzy
Hmm.
finally makes a movie where he can make rated R and have nudity, and that movie is high level trash and awesome. Or Orson Welles film that's on Netflix, that the one that they made after he was dead, The Other Side of the Wind. Like
Hmm.
Orson Welles had if you haven't seen that, there's a
I haven't yet. No.
oh man, there's some high level trash in that movie too. It's worth checking out though. It's very interesting, but Delirium, man, that Hitchcock aesthetic, but on like our level of budget and over and overdubbed. If you can get your hands on it, Chad, I'm telling you, you'll be in for a good time. So anyway, any final thoughts from you, homie?
um. Well, let's see. My next feature film is gonna be Left for Dead. As we mentioned, the campaign for our film is going. By the time you hear this episode, you'll be looking out for our next campaign portion of it, which is probably going to be the post production. But you can find us on Instagram at the Left for Dead Utah film on Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram or TikTok under ryan.mcdonald.filmmaker, and follow along the journey as we make movies. So.
Yeah, and I think just we should put the links for those in this video. So look for them below, like,
Mhm.
subscribe, and follow along with the journey, and you'll find out this summer more about Left for Dead.
Yeah.
It's also got airplane stunts.
Yeah. Yeah, they're on the ground. I jump out of the cockpit and land on the dirt.